بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
The questioner posed the question that what is the requirement of repetitive supplications, du'as? Is not one time sufficient for acceptance? There are many a times you pray dua once and Allah fulfills it. Many a times before you ask the dua, your desire is fulfilled. Sometimes you ask once, sometimes you ask a few times, sometimes you ask hundreds of times and it's not fulfilled. What is the reason? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to test you. Allah wants to test you how much effort can you do in wanting your desire to be fulfilled. Based on that, we keep on asking for dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And many a times we realize that the dua is answered before you ask. Sometimes you ask the first time it's answered. Sometimes after a few times, sometimes you ask 100 times it's not answered. As far as I'm concerned, I always say that if my dua is answered, when I do a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if my dua is answered, I am happy. If my dua is not answered, I'm 10 times happier. Why? Because the first was my choice and the second was Allah's choice. So if my dua is answered, I'm happy because Allah has fulfilled my desire. If my dua is not answered, I'm 10 times happier because Allah, who is the knower of ilm ghaib, he has knowledge of the unseen, he knows everything. He has not answered my dua because that was his choice. He knows what is good for me and what is not good for me. Many a times you may ask a thing which is not good for you. Allah says in the Quran, you may love a thing which is not good for you and you may hate a thing which is good for you. You don't know, but Allah knows. So based on that, many a times we wonder, and I always give that example, that there was a person who was going to catch a flight. He was catching a flight from Bombay to New York, and he had a very important meeting in New York where he was going to make a profit of more than $1 million. But while he's going towards the airport, there was a heavy traffic jam. And because of the traffic jam, he misses his flight. And then he says, this is the worst thing that happened in my full life. That I missed the flight and now I have missed an opportunity to make $1 million. While he's returning back, he reaches the airport late, he misses the flight. While he's returning back, again there's traffic, he hears on the radio in the car that the flight he was supposed to catch, it took off and there was an accident and all the passengers in the flight died. The moment he heard this, he says, this is the best thing that happened in my life that I missed the flight. Imagine a few hours earlier you were saying that the worst thing that happened to him in his life was he missed the flight. And later on, after a couple of hours, he says, the best thing that happened in his life was he missed the flight. So you don't know, Allah knows. So maybe he was praying while going to the airport. I pray to Allah that may I not miss the flight, may I not miss the flight, and he misses the flight. And he's cursing the day. He comes back and then he realizes what Allah did was much better than what he wanted. So the rule is that you do dua and you leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's the best. He has ilm ghaib. Regarding the repetitive nature, Allah wants to check that how much do you really are ready to sacrifice. Are you doing dua the way you're prescribed to dua? Are you doing dua regularly, normally? Are you doing dua at the tahajjud time, in your sujood, in the last 1/3, which is the prescribed time? Are you doing dua in the 1 hour after Asr on Friday, where 1 hour, which is the crucial hour, where Allah says He answers the prayers of His servants? Are you doing dua in the sujood in your salah? So there are prescribed time. Allah is checking you. So these are the prescribed things in Islam, in the Quran and the Hadith. And the answer I've given on which are the best times for doing dua and what are the prescribed duas, etc. So Allah wants to check that how much jihad, how much effort, how much striving are you willing to do to fulfill your requirements. Hope that answers the question.
يا نفس إن لم تظفري لا تجزعي